today outside the UK mission of the International Committee of the Red Cross to demand the International Committee of the Red Cross do its duty to Palestinian political prisoner Samir Arbid, who has been hospitalized since last Friday in a critical condition on a life support system after being savagely tortured by the Israeli secret police, torture that was sanctioned by an Israeli judge. Last week, on the 25th September 2019, Samir Arbid, a 44 years old Palestinian father of 3 young children, was attacked by Israeli soldiers whilst on his way home from work with his wife. They brutally beat him in front of his wife and then abducted him. They took him to the notorious Russian compound interrogation center of the Jerusalem prison, where the beatings continued. A banning order was issued preventing him from seeing a lawyer. The next day, Samir was taken to upper military court. Again, he was prevented from having his lawyer present. With his wounds visible, he pleaded with the judge for medical attention, that he was suffering severe pain in his chest and constantly throwing up. Rather than immediately rush him to hospital, the judge instead agreed to the Israeli secret police Shin-Bet's request that they needed to further torture Samir, as he had not yet confessed to anything. So the judge legally sanctioned Shin-Bet to further torture Samir Arbid. Samir was dragged back to the torture den of the Russian compound. On the 28th September, Samir's lawyer was informed via phone call by one of the interrogators at the Russian compound of a Jerusalem prison that Samir had been legally tortured for the last 48 hours, was now in a critical condition, unconscious, on a life support system at Hadassa Hospital. His ribs had been smashed, his kidney failed, with his whole body covered in bruises as a result of Israeli state-sanctioned torture. The Israeli secret police, Shin-Bet, in a statement released on the same day, said,
"Why are you guys here, by the way?"
The investigator reported that he did not feel well. According to procedure, he was transferred to the hospital for medical examinations and treatment. No other details can be provided. Samir's lawyer petitions the military court to release Samir from Shin custody when due to the state of his health. But a military judge rejected the request, saying that Samuel should be ready in the coming days to resume interrogations.
Amnesty International has condemned the Israeli state-sanctioned torture, saying it is utterly outrageous that the use of torture during interrogations continues to be sanctioned by the Israeli authorities from the Shin-Bet through the executive branch and all the way to the Supreme Court. Under international treaties which legally bind Israel, the use of torture cannot be justified under any circumstances. This case exposes Israel's claims that its judiciary upholds human rights as a complete sham. Israel's authorities must end their systematic use of torture and ensure that those responsible for the torture of Samir Abid, including those with command and other superior responsibility, are held to account. Since 1967, 221 Palestinian political prisoners have died in Israeli occupation prisons. 73 of them have been tortured to death. The last Palestinian prisoner to be tortured to death was Nasser Taqatba.
Nasser Taqatba, less than 3 months ago, on the 16th of July 2019, 31 years old Palestinian prisoner Nasser Taqatba was found dead in his isolation cell after being tortured for nearly a month. He had been taken to Israel's notorious Jalame torture den for interrogation on the 19th of June 2019. Following harsh interrogation, he was sent to solitary confinement at Nitzan Detention Center to die in isolation. Despite his weakness and visible signs of medical need, he was denied medical treatment, and the Israeli prison authorities refused to remove him from solitary confinement, claiming he was being punished. He was subjected to cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, amounting to torture under interrogation. His autopsy showed he had succumbed to acute pneumonia. His hands and feet showed clear signs of shackling during his interrogation. Nasser Taqatba, murder by torture, is not an isolated incident.
Arafat Jaradat, a 30-year-old Palestinian father of 2 young children, aged 4 and 2 years old, married with a pregnant wife, died on September 23rd, February 2013, after being savagely tortured for 5 days by Israel's secret police, Shin-Bet. He had been arrested on suspicion of just throwing a stone. 5 days later, he was dead. At his last military hearing on 22nd February, Arafat pleaded with the judge that he didn't want to go back to his cell because he was being brutally tortured. He had severe pain in his back and all over his body due to the beatings and being hung for many hours during interrogation. The judge was dismissive and the torture continued. Arafat died the next day. Shin-Bet claimed he had died of a heart attack, but the autopsy carried out at the National Israeli Forensic Medicine Center showed no sign of heart failure or any other illness, but revealed broken bones and found his whole body was covered in, quote, strong and excessive bruising, unquote, under the skin, inside the muscles and along the spine and the bottom of the neck, deep inside the tissue. That's also a quotation. The autopsy determined the cause of death as, quote, nervous shock as a result of extreme pain from the intensity of the injuries, which resulted from multiple direct and extensive acts of torture. Shockingly, it was revealed that an Israeli doctor was involved in Arafat's torture who had guided the interrogators, giving them the green light for further torture.
We are here at the Red Cross Center. Raid Abdul Salam, 37 years old father of 5 young children. Raid Abdul Salam Al-Jabari died on the 9th of September 2014 after being severely and repeatedly tortured by Israeli interrogators at Estel prison. Israel had claimed that Al-Jabari had committed suicide by hanging himself in his cell, but the autopsy revealed clear signs of torture. Al-Jabari had suffered brain hemorrhage following repeat blows to the head and face. His neck showed no signs of hanging. Al-Jabari was a car mechanic in Hebron when he was abducted by the occupation on the 26th of July 2014 following a car accident involving an illegal Israeli settler. After a month of interrogation at Ofar prison, Al-Jabari was to be released on bail until the prosecution appealed and his bail was revoked. He was then moved from Ofar prison to Eshel prison on the 3rd of September to undergo further interrogations. 6 days later, he was dead.
The Geneva Convention strictly prohibits torture, and Israel is a signatory to the Convention Against Torture. The Rome Statute, Articles 7 and 8, state that torture is a war crime, and when systematic and widespread, it is a crime against humanity. Israel is the only state that legally sanctions torture. The Public Committee of Torture was submitted between 2001 and 2015, but not a single complaint has led to a criminal investigation, let alone a trial or a conviction. United Nations funded Treatment and Rehabilitation Center for Victims of Torture for occupied Palestinian territory in 2014 treated 845 Palestinian victims of torture, including 317 women and 135 children.
The International Committee of the Red Cross was created on the mandate of ensuring that the Geneva Conventions are upheld. Unfortunately, the International Committee of the Red Cross has failed to do this for Palestinian political prisoners. It has shamefully remained silent once the Israeli state sanctions torture of Palestinian prisoners like Samer Arbit. The International Committee of the Red Cross is to be condemned for failing to take action and hold the Israeli occupation accountable for its violations against Palestinian prisoners. Their inaction emboldens the occupation to continue its crimes against the prisoners. We are here to demand the International Committee of the Red Cross stop turning a blind eye to Israel's systematic breach of the Geneva Conventions. and do its duty and investigate Samir's torture, to use its considerable influence to demand Israel immediately release Samir and to hold those responsible for his torture, including the judge, accountable for their crimes. Shame on you, International Committee of the Red Cross.
Shame on you! Red Cross! Shame on you, Red Cross! On you, Red Cross!
Shame on you, International Committee of the Red Cross. Free Palestine!